Welcome to Tracy Aaron Talks, where functional medicine meets personal development. You want to be living your best life, but the overwhelming amount of health information out there is confusing, and the way you think about yourself is keeping you stuck. You know you are meant for more. As a women's health specialist, my aim is to simplify and equip you with the tools you need to be beautifully balanced from the inside out. Welcome back to Tracy Aaron Talks, where today I'm going to talk about favorite supplements that I always travel with. I like to think of this in terms of categories and the major things that can, let's say, go wrong on a trip when you're away from home, away from your supplement cabinet, away from stores that you're familiar with or dispensaries that you typically use. So I just wanted to share with you what supplements I try to never leave home with in case this helps you as you travel this summer, this fall, winter, whenever you go on a trip. How do you know what you need to bring with you? And just so you know, I tend to be somewhat of a minimalist. So I don't like to bring a bunch of stuff that I'm never going to use. I don't like to be inefficient in a sort of way where I'm touching things, packing things, unpacking things, putting it back away. Now I just feel like I've just given myself another job. And I feel like as a health practitioner with a busy practice with 5 children at home that I'm homeschooling, being a wife, a homemaker, all the things, I try to minimize the amount of work in my life. So I'm sure that you can relate or understand that. And so I really just like to bring the basics. So that's what I'm going to share with you today. Not all the things that you might need and not all the things that you could bring with you, but the things that I actually do bring with me. So I'll break it down for you after I explain that I find that I like to carry them all together in a pouch. I don't keep it in like what we might call a toiletry bag or an overnight bathroom bag type thing. I found a super cute rifle company, that floral designer that you can find in boutiques and stuff. I found a nice little canvas cotton pouch that is about, I don't know, 5x7, 5x8 inch size. And it's just right for everything that I pack. And it has a zipper top, so nothing is falling out and everything tends to work really nicely. And it's really easy to put in my carry-on or to stuff away in my luggage. And it tends to work. And I'll share a picture with you of what that looks like. So let's get on to the supplements. I like to think in terms of what could go wrong in the body. Like, I'm going to be away from home. How could I possibly be getting sick? And what might I need to have with me? So I think of it in terms of like, it's very common to get like headaches, okay, digestive issues, stomach things, trouble with sleeping. How about just like lowered immunity and then pain, like any kind of pain, scrapes, bruises, or even, soft tissue injuries. So that's the main categories that I think of when I think about traveling with supplements. So let's just go ahead and start at the beginning. For headaches, I always travel with peppermint oil. Peppermint oil is really amazing for the right kind of headache. I will say it doesn't solve every type of headache. And the sooner I start applying peppermint oil to my temples, the more and the better relief that I get. So I love to have that. Now, I will say, even though I am in the health and wellness field and I tend to be as natural and holistic as possible, I always travel with a small sample of Advil, like one of those smaller tube bottles that has, I don't know, 10 to 12 little pills in it. And that is when I just cannot get on top of it with essential oils, but I'm traveling and I don't have the time to try something else or to get to a store, etc. I just have a couple Advil with me in case I need that. So that's my one thing on my list that I would say is probably in the conventional mindset. Everything else would be classified as like an herb, a nutraceutical supplement, essential oil, something like that. But that's all I tend to do as far as headaches. Good old peppermint oil and some Advil. That's really all I've personally ever needed. Then I think about digestion. Like, what can go wrong there? Well, I've been away from home and have had bouts of food poisoning that have been very unfun to deal with when you're not at home. And I love to travel with a binder because of that. Now, typically, if I'm at home and I feel like I'm suspecting food poisoning, there's really not much better you can do than an activated charcoal. However, when I'm traveling, since I don't bring everything, I like to combine the charcoal idea with a binder that has other ingredients in it that make it more effective and more absorbable in the body, and also won't just counteract any other supplements or nutrients that I'm taking. Because activated charcoal, I don't know if you know this, but it can leach nutrients from other foods that are in the digestive tract at the same time. So that's one danger in taking activated charcoal long term. However, we're talking about a short term application where you've got some stomach upset after eating somewhere or you suspect food poisoning. Really, there's nothing better than a binder that has some activated charcoal in it. And I personally love to travel with Cellcore's ViradChem binder. The ViradChem stands for viruses, radiation, and chemicals. I like to use that binder in place of just a solid activated charcoal because of that radiation protection. And when I'm traveling, I'm generally talking about flying on a plane. So I always do a female opt out if my TSA pre check has not been preloaded onto my ticket and I somehow end up in another lane, which is awfully frustrating, but occasionally it does happen and they want to put me through that big scanner. Well, it's just my personal preference. I don't like to go through that. So I always wait on the side and ask for a female opt out. Nonetheless, you're still getting lots of radiation because you're walking through other x ray scanners and you are flying in an airplane, which is like a box of radiation. So I like to use that binder for traveling on airplanes. Now, other stomach helps that I find helpful is the doTERRA Digestive Oil. I like to carry it in a roller ball, makes it really easy to apply to an upset stomach. So I just roll it over my belly. And there have been times I've been in the throes of food poisoning and I have an immediate feeling of relief after application. It really is hard to believe until you try it yourself, and then you'll know what I'm talking about. But you don't have to be in the throes of food poisoning. It can just be a little bit of a stomach ache. And I love to have that roller ball with me for any quick application when I need some kind of immediate relief. Now, there is a thing that is a real thing, and it's that idea of whenever you travel or you're away from home, you tend to get more constipated. Or it's just that your bowels are not working on the same schedule that they were at home. So I always like to travel with Bowel Mover. I typically don't have issues with constipation, but if I'm experiencing jet lag, I'm traveling time zones, and I feel like my bowels are just out of sync, then I like a little bit of bowel support, and the Cellcore Bowel Mover is really happy to keep things on track. Now, I will say about that supplement in particular, it can be quite strong, and so start slow and only add more as you need it. I find that one capsule a day when I'm traveling is just the right amount to keep my bowels moving regularly with eating at restaurants constantly and a bunch of new food, possibly an introduction of seed oils and alcohol and other things that I don't typically have in my diet at home. The bowel mover just really helps me in that way. But you might need two, you might need four. If you're ever really desperate, you can take more than that. But I would just caution you to start slow because it can hit people with a bunch of cramps and then you're just uncomfortable and now you've got other issues. So that's my summary for what I love to do for the digestive tract. Now, after that, sleep. Sleep is typically an issue when you're traveling. You're not in your bed, you're not in your home environment, or you're possibly on somebody else's schedule. This one I keep really simple. I just use the Serenity oil from doTERRA. I love the actual oil so that I can drop a couple drops onto my palms, my hand, rub my hands together and rub it all over my pillow. And then I just put the rest of it on my chest. And I really enjoy that. So I feel like that is enough really to get me into sleep. Now, if you're wondering about traveling across time zones, especially to Europe, and you're wondering how to deal with jet lag, I have a whole separate episode on dealing with jet lag naturally. So I encourage you to tune into that because I go a little bit deeper into sleep medicine that is natural and effective in that episode. But for just general use when traveling, I feel like my Serenity oil does the trick for me. Now, as far as the immune system, you're encountering a new environment, you've got new pathogens that you are coming across, and all kinds of things could happen when you travel. So I like to have some things on board that are focused on the immune system. Number one, I think of like the portals of the body, right? Like ear, nose, and throat type thing. So I love doTERRA's On Guard throat lozenges. They're very powerful and I can feel the effect immediately. They're very soothing to the throat and they have helped a sore throat turn around with the use of just one or two lozenges. So I tend to never leave home without those. I always throw a couple of those into my travel bag and I enjoy that quite a bit. I travel with vitamin D. Now, I know that you can use vitamin D in super high doses for up to 3 days and really shorten something like a flu or a cold. In fact, I will use 50,000 IUs 3 days in a row, and it really helps me to get over the hump if I feel like I'm coming down with something. So I always travel with 150,000 IUs of vitamin D in my travel bag. I also like to use doTERRA's On Guard beadlets. They come in a little teeny tiny tube. In fact, they're so small you could put them in your purse or your pocket. And I like to actually have this on the plane with me. And I'll put two beadlets as I'm getting on the plane, and I'll do two beadlets during a flight if it's a long flight over 4 hours. And then I'll do two beadlets when I get off the plane. And that just kind of gives me a little extra consistent boost of the essential oils that are in the On Guard formulation that are very immune building and pathogen fighting. So I like to have those on board as well. Two more things that I consider are great for the immune system. I always carry a supplement that's called Nucleoimmune. This is produced by Premier Research Lab, and it has the formula is just a bunch of immune boosting herbs, but it also has some beta glucans in there. Beta glucans is a really nice supplement that helps ramp up the immune system when you need it to be ramped up. And so traveling is one of those times. So I really love the Nucleoimmune. Lastly, this is kind of optional, but I tend to just appreciate this. And I will carry this in my purse as well because it's so easy to consume. I don't need water. Is homeopathic lozenges, like tablets that go underneath the tongue and they just dissolve. And I like to have a blend that's called Flu Plus, and it's just a multi-symptom relief. And it's anything if I feel like I'm coming down with a cold or a flu when I'm traveling. This homeopathic is really, really nice. And I can high dose it. I can take two tablets under the tongue every 15 minutes and then go to every hour. And I have stopped many a colds and flus when traveling just with these things. Um, Okay, so pain. What do I do for pain? Well, I like to travel with arnica. I like to use a little tiny homeopathic, um, the little tube where you can twist the top and you can just get two pellets and then drop them in your mouth. And I find that that helps if I'm having any kind of pain. I don't typically deal with things like back pain or neck pain or stiffness or soreness or anything like that, thankfully. But if I did, I never would leave home without arnica. I feel like it really, really helps. But if I'm sleeping on a plane, I'm sleeping wonky, or if you get a bruise or like you get banged up or you have really heavy luggage, you're lugging through airports, anything like that, I feel like arnica is a really good thing to run to. And the last thing for that is I love doTERRA's Deep Blue Stick. You can get it in other formulas, but I love the stick because it's really easy to apply directly to, like, topically on where you feel that body pain. And it has a really nice scent, and I feel like it's helpful for sore muscles and also things like bruises and simple aches and pains. Lastly, if you followed my trip to Spain recently, you saw that I always travel with a nebulizer, and I showed you how I use it after I get off the plane. Now, sometimes on a long flight, I would like to use it on the plane. But for this recent trip, I really just used it when I got there off the plane. And I just do like a 5 to 10 minute session, really, as I'm walking to get my luggage. So that time period from exiting the plane to you get your luggage is generally not that long. And it's the perfect time to get out a portable nebulizer that is already preloaded with the stuff that you want in it. And I just breathe into it. And sometimes I used to think, oh, people staring at me, this is uncomfortable. But it doesn't look like you're vaping. It certainly doesn't look like you're smoking. It really just looks like you're using a handheld nebulizer with a little bit of like that smoke type exhaust going up your nose. And I've just come to not even care what other people are thinking around me because it's really so effective. So in my handheld nebulizer, and by the way, I have one by Omron, which is a really nice company. I'm not so sure if they sell their handheld travel one anymore that's battery operated. I only say that because there were several people who reached out to me who wanted to get the model that I have, and I had a hard time finding it. I've had mine for several years, so maybe they have something else out right now. But you'll just want something that is an actual, like a mesh, high quality nebulizer, and make sure it's battery operated, small enough to fit into your purse or your carry on so that you can use it when you need it and not need to get into your luggage. I always fill my nebulizer with some food grade hydrogen peroxide. I also like to use distilled water in it. So you never want to nebulize straight hydrogen peroxide. It's kind of caustic on the lungs. But if I just use up to, let's say, a quarter of a teaspoon of food grade hydrogen peroxide in distilled water, I feel like that's very good. And I can feel it in my throat, I feel it in my nose, and I can feel it in my lungs. I feel like it's very cleansing. So let's see. I think I've got everything on there in terms of what fits into my little tiny bag that has a zipper on the top. I also recently, for that trip to Spain, I found these little plastic pouches on Amazon. Now, I'm not thrilled that they're made out of plastic, but they were so user friendly. Until I come up with another solution, I'm going to continue to use them. But they look like miniature Ziplocs, and they're color coded, and they have little labels that I can write the name of the supplement that is inside the little pouch. And I loved them because I can put all the supplements I need for up to 2 weeks inside one pouch, and it takes up a fraction of the space as a supplement bottle. So that is great when you need to consider how much luggage you have with you. So those are the things that have made a really big difference for me. And that's what I tend to travel with. Now, that might morph over time and I might add or take things away, but I travel for conferences, I travel for, health related things. I also travel for pleasure with my family. And so these are the things that I always have in my travel bag. And as always, if you have any questions about anything that I'm using specifically, let me know. I would be happy to answer them for you. But until next time, my friends, stay beautifully balanced. Thank you for joining me today on Tracy Aaron Talks. I hope you found today's episode enriching to your life. If you enjoyed today's content, would you consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving a review? That simple act helps this podcast get into the hands and ears of many more women just like you. Remember, anything you want and do not yet have will require a new set of beliefs, thoughts, actions, and a new you. I am honored to be on this journey with you as we wholeheartedly pursue true health and wellness in mind, body, and soul.